While we wait for the Supreme Court to do justice and disqualify Tinubu based on the evidence before them right now, let's not forget that the issue of forgery is not the only thing that the Supreme Court will determine, because it is important that the judiciary arm of government maintains consistency. One judge in Enugu cannot be saying another thing while another judge in Lagos will be interpreting the same law in another manner, while a judge in Kanu will be interpreting the law in a completely different way. Judges do not have the leeway to interpret the law anyhow they wish. They are supposed to interpret the law to the letter, not introduce their own meanings. They are supposed to uphold the intention of the drafters of the law. That's exactly how they are supposed to deliver justice, not try to twist it anyhow they wish. So it is very important that the Supreme Court sets the record straight, so that every justice delivered, especially in this selection cycle, will be uniform, because it is the same law they are interpreting. It makes a mockery of the whole process. How can a judge in faraway Katsina State disqualify a candidate because the person forged his first school leaving certificate? And in Enugu, another judge had the audacity to open his mouth and say, yes, this guy forged his certificate, but that certificate is not a requirement to contest for governor. This is contrary to all the judicial precedents from the Supreme Court. So how can a judge or many judges be able to do this? This is the job facing the Supreme Court justices. They should set the record straight so that we know which is which. We know which one to follow. How can one law be interpreted to have many meanings? Yes, it's becoming comical. Even the recent sacking of Senator Elisha Abo from Adamawa State by the Appeal Court. They held that INEC did not follow the electoral law in the conduct of the senatorial election. They went ahead and deducted some votes from Elisha Abo and now awarded the victory to the PDP candidate. This is the same appeal court that threw away everything that P2B and the Labour Party, including Atiku and PDP, brought at the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal. Going through their judgment, they never recognized the fact that INEC was bound by the law to upload results in real time and other infractions they committed during the presidential election. So they need to be consistent. How can the same appeal court have different opinions on the same matter, the same law, the same everything? It doesn't make any sense. Many of the things they said in their judgment, INEC never argued them during the hearing. Right now, the INEC chairman is saying that they will follow the law and upload the results in real time when he was talking about the upcoming governorship elections in Nigeria. So if INEC is saying that they will follow the law, which law did the appeal court justices base their judgment on? Yes, it doesn't make sense. Even during the hearing, INEC never argued that it wasn't a requirement by the law to uphold results in real time. They only said that a glitch prevented them from doing so. So if they are giving an excuse of something that prevented them from doing what the law wants them to do, it means they accept that the law mandates them to do it. So how did the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal judges reach their conclusion? This is a major question that the Supreme Court justices will need to answer, because it is very important going forward. Why did the National Assembly spend time debating and amending the Electoral Act? Because they recognized the weaknesses in the election process in Nigeria. That was why they introduced technology. At the end of the day, the Electoral Commission did not follow that law, which they accepted. But unfortunately, the appeal court justices held otherwise. So the Supreme Court needs to, as a matter of urgency, in order to save our elections going forward, they need to uphold exactly the wording of the Electoral Act, which, going by the arguments of INEC themselves, they already accept that the electoral law and other laws mandates them to upload presidential election results, not just that, but any other election for that matter going forward in Nigeria. They are bound by the law to upload the election results in real time, so as to protect the will of the people. We all know what happens after voting. That's if they allow the voting to take place in the first place, because in some cases, when they see that they are not winning, thugs will disrupt the voting process. The Supreme Court needs to uphold the law, otherwise they will be pushing us back to Maurice Iwu era, when people went to polling units and struggling to vote, whereas politicians are writing the results in hotel rooms around the country. When you come to collation centers with your result sheets, They will be announcing something different from what you came with. It will also mean that all the money spent in buying equipment, training, the huge budget of more than 300 billion naira spent for the conduct of this election would have gone to waste. So it is expected that the Supreme Court will disagree with the appeal court in this case and hold that the substantial non-compliance of the law by INEC affected the outcome of the presidential election. In this case, it will lead to cancellation of the election because INEC cannot account for more than 30 million voters, which is 1/3 of the registered voters that were expected to cast their vote at the presidential election. So it is a substantial non-compliance that affected the result of the presidential election in a substantial way. Just look at the difference between the first and the second, which is about 1.8 million votes. Now, when you talk about the 30 million voters, not all of them will vote, but going by the national average, it is more than 1.8 million votes difference between the first and the second. Another part of their judgment that the Supreme Court justices must disagree with is their strange decision that when a witness testifies in court under subpoena, that witness is not a witness of the court. This was a very strange take by the appeal court justices, and if left to stand, it will have serious implications in Nigerian courtrooms going forward. This was the technicality they used to trash 10 witnesses of the Labour Party. It is the court that issues a subpoena, and if someone testifies under the same order of the court, how can they turn around and say that witness is not a witness of the court? If the Supreme Court disagrees with them, that means all their witness statements must be put into consideration in the new decision of the Supreme Court, which might lead to either the cancellation of the election or declaration of P2B as the winner. Yes, despite one of the appeal court justices asking the petitioners whether they wanted her to go to the market to get the evidence, massive evidence was tendered before them, but they never considered them because they were already fixated on trashing their witnesses. Labour Party tendered evidence from Rivers State, Benue, and some other states. Their witness also said that he couldn't conclude the calculation because of time to go to court. But the justices never looked at any of the evidence, even if they claimed that they should provide evidence from every polling unit. Why not look at the one they brought? At least they should have proved that one and say, okay, you won here, we accept, we won here, you accept, but it's still not enough to declare you winner. They never made any attempt at all because of their bias. They were already fixated on what to do, on the destination they want to arrive. Another issue where the Supreme Court must disagree with the appeal court justices is the issue of invalid nomination brought by Allied People's Movement. Of course, you already know this case. Tinubu failed to appoint a new vice presidential candidate 14 days after the placeholder withdrew. And according to the law, APC should have conducted a new presidential election primary to determine their flag bearer. They never did any of these. Why were the laws made in the first place if people are not going to obey them? So the Supreme Court has a duty to uphold the law in this instance so as to curtail the impunity from politicians, because that was the reason this law was made in the first place. Now, back to Tinubu's certificate forgery. The Supreme Court must uphold the law in this instance. They have done it before. They did it in 2017 when they disqualified a candidate because he forged a certificate. One of the justices in that case mentioned that there is no more room for certificate forgers going forward. So they have done it before. They should do it this time, not minding who is involved. Not just that, what will happen to people who will appeal? Because in this election cycle, some people have already been disqualified for certificate forgery. They will definitely appeal them up to the Supreme Court. What will the court say when such appeals come to them? Will they say the person didn't do it? If they do that, that means the people they disqualified in the past will have the right for a review. They will come back to the Supreme Court and say, please review our case since you left Tinubu, since you left this person. The application and interpretation of the law must be consistent. Thanks for watching.